your Baltimore Ravens against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this game feels like this rests firmly on the shoulders of Trevor Lawrence. For them to have any hope of beating the Ravens, he's got to come out and have a phenomenal game.
Yeah, and it's the hopes of all our fantasy teams, because if Trevor Lawrence is out there, this game is going to get pushed in a way that it just wouldn't if CJ Beathard was out there. Like, we need Lamar to be pushed. We saw what happens last week. When Lamar and the Ravens are pushed, they can give you great fantasy point production from. I mean, I had a DFS lineup with Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, and Isaiah Likely all in it, and all three of them hit. It was the rest of my lineup that was rubbish last week, but all of those got there. And then from the Jacksonville side, we absolutely need Trevor Lawrence, but we need a healthier Trevor Lawrence. You saw last week, Zay Jones had 14 targets and he only had 5 catches for 29 yards. Yes, Etienne got there with his second consecutive 17-point game. Yes, Evan Ingram, he had 64 catches before his first touchdown. Now he's had 3 in 2 games. But we need Calvin Ridley. We need that downfield game going. And we need Trevor Lawrence to look like himself. He had a 56% completion rate last week against the Browns, which is his lowest since week 2. It was his first 3 passing touchdown game of the season, though. So if we can see a little bit more from him. The Ravens side, though, I mean, this feels like another eruption spot. And Lamar has a habit of doing this in prime time, The Jags, they've allowed the second most quarterback one games. They've allowed 3 top 6 finishes to quarterbacks in the last 6 games. They've also struggled against rushing touchdowns and dual threat quarterbacks. Lamar's averaged 9.8 attempts and 52 rush yards per game over the last sort of like 4 or 5 games. Odell Beckham, I mean, Beckham is second in yards per route run since week 9, only behind Tyreek Hill. Yes, he's not playing constantly, but when he's on the field, they target him. They're targeting him downfield as well. The connection looked really patchy early on in the season, but I think you start Odell Beckham as a wide receiver 3 this week. Zay Flowers averages 20.3 points per game in games without Mark Andrews now. We've seen that over the course of 3 games. Sample size is getting bigger. And Isaiah Likely, 5 games without Mark Andrews over the last 2 years, 11.2 PPR points per game. That's the equivalent of tight end 7. So I think you can start him with relative comfort, because the Jags, their defense it's been good at times, but they allow the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks, the 8th most to wide receivers, and the 9th most to tight ends. Where they've been better has been against the run. They have the 2nd best run defense in DVOA. Gus Edwards isn't getting it done at the minute. Doesn't really look too good. Justice Hill played a lot last week, but that was because the Ravens went on. They had 2 long drives in 2-minute drills. They had a 15-play drive and a 12-play drive. That was why Justice Hill was out there. So I don't think we see that usage be sticky. But yeah, Keaton Mitchell, I don't mind starting. Gus Edwards, if you absolutely have to, but you count it on touchdowns there.
Yeah, look, this Jaguars defense is the only defense in the NFL that's still set in the 1990s. They still go out to stop the run and are happy for you to try and pass the ball over the field on them. And, it's wild. I don't quite understand why they do it, but that's what they do. So, yeah, I'm nervous about Gus Edwards. I think Keaton Mitchell could get there just on explosive plays alone. But I love the Ravens pass catches in this one. I think Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham are great, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 options. And I think that Lamar could potentially, a big game in an island slot, this could potentially be the type of game that propels him towards that MVP conversation.